So Shannon Sharpe, not Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe is definitely someone that is trending right now in social media, partly because he has a popular podcast, but most recently is the lawsuit that he has looming over him. Let's check this news segment out to see exactly what's going on with Shannon Sharpe.
And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Former athlete and media personality now, Shannon Sharpe, is attempting to clear his name after facing a lawsuit for allegedly raping a woman on multiple occasions. His response revealing the name of the accuser and some very X-rated text messages he says he received from her. All right, let's take a look at this. According to the lawsuit, the anonymous woman says it began as a consensual relationship when she was 20 years old. She also accuses Sharpe of a violent sexual assault and rape in October of last year and again in January of this year. The complaint seeks more than $50 million in damages. Sharpe fired back, posting alleged texts from the woman in the lawsuit on social media. One of them reads, "I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it while you're effing me." Another, "I know you miss this big juicy ass, $25,000 for each cheek." And here's another alleged text, "You better crave it, cuz you're gonna be stuck with it for life after you put a big black baby in me." The rest are way too spicy. I don't know what's left. Joining us to talk about it.
So you guys heard it. Shannon Sharpe has a lawsuit for him allegedly raping this young lady, but he fired back, came online, and he showed some of these text messages. And you guys can see what's going on. What are your thoughts? You guys can see that, she's being explicit. If these are from her, she's being explicit and things like that. Again, let me know what you think. We're going to hear the professional breakdown. I'm on this station because they broke it down so well. So again, let me know your thoughts and let's keep going.
Defense attorney and former Harris County prosecutor by O.G. Akingbala and Factor Digital producer Ajibola Budaran to talk about this case. So your thoughts about this, just looking at it from the outside, your thoughts?
It's a big mess for Shannon Sharpe. Tony Busby is on this case, right?
And he's a Houston-based attorney.
Houston-based attorney.
Been here on The Factor several times.
Yes, and we've seen him file several lawsuits against the likes of P. Diddy, against Jay-Z, which was recently dismissed. And now here we go again against Shannon Sharpe. What sticks out to me, however, is the context of the allegations are different from what you would see on some of these other cases like Diddy, right? Or Cosby, who was putting in date rape drugs in several victims' drinks. In this case, she's saying this is a consensual relationship. We had a lot of consensual sex, and on these 2 or 3 separate occasions, it just so happens that it wasn't consensual. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a thing, and that these situations don't happen within the context of consensual relationships. But I do think it's going to be a lot difficult to prove it, because it begs the question, if it happened one time in October of 2024, how did it then happen again in January of 2024? If it happened at your apartment, as she's alleging, who did you tell? Did you speak to the apartment landowners? Did you call 911? Did you go to the hospital? So there's a concern about provability. And then to add another layer of what might impugn her credibility are the supposed text messages that Shannon Sharpe has. These text messages suggest that she was more of the one initiating these encounters.
The aggressor, well, not aggressor as in crime, but in the relationship.
Yes, initiating the sexual encounter, and that in some cases was even soliciting, saying sex in exchange for cash, $25,000 per cheek. If that is proven to be coming from her, it's really going to undermine the credibility of her allegations. So that being said, even if this is not a case that Tony Busby can prove by the preponderance of the evidence, I am concerned about the hit that it has on Shannon Sharpe as a public figure. Because let's say this goes to trial, then there's going to be a lot of public scrutiny of Shannon Sharpe's sex life at age 56 with that of a 19, 20-year-old. It's just not a good look for someone who's employed by Disney.
All right. Aji, what are they saying on social media? What's the response from people out there?
Well, I would say the kind of big elephant in the room is the fact that Tony Busby is on the case. So I think a lot of people still have the memory of the case he put out against Jay-Z and how that fell through. So I think a lot of people are waiting to kind of see if more information comes in. And some people just are writing off the whole case, saying that this is something we just saw a few months ago and nothing came of it.
So what do you think? Do you think this is a real case, or do you think, this is just someone else trying to get a big check off of some celebrity? We see this oftentimes. And you guys can hear this. Sounds like it can get sticky because they were in a relationship that was, consensual. And now she's saying a few times it wasn't, a couple times it wasn't, but also it kind of looks funny when you make a claim in October and then you wait, you still deal with them, and then somehow it happened again, following January the next year. That kind of just looks a little funny. But again, what do you guys think? If he did something like this, of course it's horrible, right? But we see these cases so often, oftentimes people already have, become numb to some of this. But let's keep on going with the interview.
So I think a lot of people with the text messages and with the controversy around Busby, they are kind of taking Shannon's word for it and not really believing that he did this. But again, more information can come out and that might change.
And when we take a look at Busby's career, and full disclosure, he's a friend of mine, but he's had a stellar career here in Texas. But there have been, issues with Jay-Z and the P. Diddy case, not so much as P. Diddy, but the Jay-Z case. And now people are questioning this. But his reputation has been stellar here in the state of Texas and defending elected officials.
Right. Yes, I agree with that. And I think the last few cases with them not being in the state of Texas and also being very, very high profile, like celebrities that people, a lot of people love or look up to, I think whenever you can poke holes into something, people are willing to poke those holes in them themselves. So with his record over the last few months, at least outside of the state, I think people are willing to be like, oh, we're going to write
And
this
Shannon
out.
Sharpe has become a beloved figure of sorts as a result of his podcast and the audience that he's captured.
Yeah, he's sports unk. That's what they call him. He's the unk. So everybody looks up to him as like kind of like that adult male figure, older guy who, gives advice and talks about relationships, sports, and all types of stuff. So I don't think people really want to see him associated with this, but he has been open with his sexual life over the last few months. So I don't think people are that surprised, especially with those text messages.
Who was Jack Sparrow, the actor who played Jack Sparrow?
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp. This case reminds me so much of the Johnny Depp case. I mean, assuming these allegations are not true, right? It still took a major hit on Johnny Depp's career. Even when he went to trial and he was vindicated, he lost that role. And so my concern for Shannon Sharpe is even if these allegations are not proven to be true, he may take a significant hit on that beloved stature that he has with the American public.
Absolutely.
Facts. As he just said, this could be a big hit on, Shannon Sharpe's reputation. I look up to Shannon Sharpe because I started doing some of these videos because I see what he's doing with Club Shay Shay and how he's interacting, and regardless of what he's talking about, as long as he relates to the people on Club Shay Shay, people are watching. So I have even been looking up to Shannon Sharpe as of lately because of what he's been creating with the content. But let's go a little deeper with this. So this is another news segment. It rolls right into it. I am a day or so behind, so I wanted to share this too. And they really are bringing it home so we can see what's going on. And again, I want to know what you guys think, because I like Shannon Sharpe and I hate to see, something like this happening to him if it's not true. Because now, let's say if it's not true, it goes to court and it's proven to be false. We all talking about it, right? That means it's already out there that, hey, Shannon Sharpe might be the type of guy that does this type of stuff. But anyway, let's go into this next segment.
Tonight, Shannon Sharpe is on the offensive. He's vowing to sue his rape accuser and attorney, Tony Busby, for defamation, who is based right here in Houston. Now, after the allegations she made against him in that lawsuit we have all heard about, the promise came just minutes after the woman's attorney, Tony Busby, released a partial audio file to TMZ Sports that he claims shows Sharpe threatening his client, who is seeking $50 million in damages. Let's take a listen.
I don't want to be, don't manipulate me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. If you say that one more time, I'm going to choke out of you when I see you.
Well, I don't want to be choked.
Yes, you do.
Now, Sharpe refutes the claim, saying he and his accuser were in a consensual relationship. His attorney claims the accuser turned down a $10 million settlement before filing the lawsuit. Before the release of the new audio, Sharpe put out a video calling the lawsuit a shakedown. Meantime, Busby claims Sharpe released a false and misleading statement through his attorney. Joining us to talk about it tonight here on The Factor, owner of Boost One Marketing, Sherry Hendrinos, attorney Simone Redwine, and Mickey Crawford McGill, the NFLPA member and NFL advisor. Glad to have you all here. Does this, Mickey, at all surprise you to see an allegation? You've worked in the NFL for years. You've been an advisor. Does this surprise you with a former athlete as well who's high profile right now?
No, not at all. I mean, the problem is when you're in the public eye, everything you do is scrutinized. You walk across the street and you get a jaywalking ticket, it makes national news. So being in that world, you have to be very vigilant about what you do and keep receipts on your own, things that you do. Very important.
You guys heard that sound advice. When you're famous like that, imagine that, having to watch every little thing that you do. Like I said, you can get a speeding ticket and next thing you know, you make news. So that is the type of pressure that some of these stars have to deal with. Let's keep going.
And have we seen some receipts here, Simone, as an attorney,
there were
from your
some receipts
perspective?
that were released by each side. So from Shannon's side, he released some text messages that show that there's a timeline and show that even after the first alleged rape, she continued to solicit him and ask him to have sex with her and invite him over. Then there's also text messages that Attorney Busby released that show that she stated to Shannon after the second instance where she's saying, I told you no means no. It doesn't matter if all the prior times I said yes, I was crying and I said no means no.
Oh, man. We're going to see what's going on. But that right there, the way she just put that sounds like a straight setup. He might have did it the first time and maybe she knew she could get him to do that again. Maybe that's why. And it sounded like a straight setup, especially if she was texting him that right after it happened again. Let's keep going.
All right, Sherry, from your perspective as a PR marketing crisis expert, and you have worked with many NFL individuals. You came from the NFL yourself. Your thoughts about this, the optics, how it looks for Shannon Sharpe?
You know, it never looks good, right?
Right.
I always think perception is everything. But unfortunately, like you were saying, you know, when you're in the public eye, everything is on a microscope. I've heard crazy stories of things happening. One of a client I worked with, he was in Vegas and hanging out with a female, and she stole his wallet and his phone and tried to get him to pay her $20,000 just to get it back. Of course, that wasn't as public as this, but unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, his PR team is immediately on it. You can tell by his statement he released. And releasing his ends. I am no lawyer like you are, but all I can do is talk about what, you know, I would do, and it's always trying to get in front of the story, you know, and try to get ahead of it. So obviously this is a big thing. I know he's had some like hiccups, but overall Shannon has a pretty good image. People like Shannon Sharpe. They really do. They like him as a person, and he's a good businessman. You don't hear any of those kind of bad things about him, right? We haven't heard any of that stuff.
But I think here one of the challenges that he's going to have as far as crisis management is his attorneys confirmed that they did mediation and that he offered her tens of millions of dollars.
I saw that.
And I think the average layperson would assume if you're offering 10 million, 20 million, you must have done something.
And of course, I think there was eventual clarification from that attorney to say 10 million instead of tens of millions of dollars.
Correct.
So, I mean, what does that look?
Yeah, I see that part. I can understand her point with her saying that once they offered the money after it already started, now they offer the money. It's already out. So why offer the money? So I get what she's saying. Sometimes that makes it look like it's guilt, but sometimes people just want to clean it up. But let me know what you think in the comments.
Look like, Sherry? I mean, if he's offered a settlement that we hear, we don't know for a fact, but if he allegedly offered that settlement, what does that mean?
You know, like she was saying, immediately people think, oh, well, you're guilty. I would never give someone $1 if I wasn't guilty. Why would I even offer that? You know?
I would, and I've told my clients too. In that instance, it was alleged that he had $100 million deal on the table.
We're going to talk about that next break.
That's coming up. Yeah, he is getting a big deal. His podcast is killing it. We were just talking before the show that he's kind of even bigger in the spotlight now than when he played football. He's a Hall of Famer. You know, he's a great, amazing player. But right now, I mean, I was just at Super Bowl. He's a big deal. You know, I do think perception's everything, but he's going to really have to be careful of how he handles this moving forward.
And of course, we'll talk about that big deal in just a moment. Simone is taking everything. Come on, Simone. Wait. We got a lot more time to talk. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue this conversation after the break. And of course, we're talking with our guest tonight about the allegations against Shannon Sharpe. And of course, Mr. McGill, when we think about a big paycheck down the road, potentially for Shannon Sharpe, first of all, tell us a little bit about that and how much does he stand to make on this deal, and would that make him more attractive for someone out there?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, you have a $100 million deal on the table. That's what people see. People see the numbers. They don't know the background, how much they take home, what's the split. Because a lot of times in those deals, sometimes they actually end up having to pay for their studio time and other things like that. But if someone sees that as a payday, that's their opportunity. It can be. Again, allegedly, I don't know the full extent of these situations, but again, when you see those dollar signs, hey, there's an idea, this might be able to craft, I can record a conversation, all these things can happen for sure.
And Simone, once again, you made the point. I would tell my client if they had it and they can afford to pay it, it wouldn't bankrupt them to settle.
Yes, absolutely, because a case like this is likely going to cost him $5 million alone just to fight it. And he's going to have to Johnny Depp it. I mean, take it all the way to the end once it becomes public. But the cost of it becoming public, a lot of times you simply cannot recover from that. Because once people assume that you did this and then got off on it, they never trust you again, and certain brands will never want to work with him.
So you guys heard what the attorney says. Oftentimes it's easier for people to pay him off because you can spend much more just going through the process. So she said she would advise her client, if she, was Shannon Sharpe's attorney, to go ahead and pay him off too. She would tell her clients to do that just because it's cheaper in the long run to say, hey, here's 10 million and we can be done with it, as opposed to going through the whole drawn out process. And then people are going to remember this whole drawn out process. Is better. She said she would just tell her clients to hang it up right there if they could. And then the guy also said Shannon Sharpe has like a $10 million deal because of his podcast. It's booming. I watch it all the time. As I said before, seeing him do the podcast kind of inspired me to maybe touch on other topics too, because he touches so much. And they even said he's kind of more in the limelight right now than he was as a football player because of his podcast. So, it's just good to hear professionals break it down. People can have their opinions all day, but again, you're talking about an attorney right here and then a PA manager right here, and they're saying what they would do. All right, let's finish this interview out.
And of course, Sherry, it will be a problem with the brands and the networks and the media companies, but most people don't seem to believe this about Shannon Sharpe, right?
Right, Shannon has a good reputation. You know, just going back to who he is as a human, right, before this, because I think people forget he's human. He's a human being. He's a father. You know, he is a businessman. Yeah, brands are going to possibly pull back, but because I think because he's had such a good reputation and he's not had you've never heard of him having any brand lawsuits, right? Like breaking any contracts. In one podcast, he was yelling at Ocho about not having a brand sign up. He's very good at that. I've seen him execute his own brands, right, as well. I think that it could be a possibility of looking at that, but I don't think they're going to make those decisions until the court gets going. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and also in some of these deals with the one that's on the table, keep in mind, I think you guys said it was with Spotify. Yeah. It's a little more of an edgy thing now. You know, you're not talking about some other networks that may have just cut it right away.
Like Disney. Yeah.
There you go. I was going to say it. She did. Right. But, you know, that might have cut it right away. And so I think that with Shannon, you know, when you've had such a solid reputation for so long, and when you think about him and anything, we've never heard of him in any big lawsuits. No one's ever, companies have not sued him. He's had a good reputation and good community involvement. So I do think that does help a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see where the legal side plays out. And I think that's going to affect the brands moving forward.
And in the last 20 seconds we have here, Simone, the alleged victim.
Yes.
I mean, does she have an uphill battle with her reputation?
It's it's not just the reputation. Okay, it's not just her reputation as an OnlyFans model. It's not just that, but it's the timeline. It's really difficult to believe that someone was raped twice, and then after each rape, they call you and tell you about how much sex they'd like to have with you and invite you back over to their house.
All right.
So that was hearing from professionals on this issue with Shannon Sharpe. Like I said, I hate to see him go through this, and we will see how it plays out. But I would like to add one thing. This is why you got to be careful when you're out there being a bachelor. My man Shannon out there being a bachelor, and a lot of times you hear married men, you know, like myself, that say, you know, it's cheaper to just keep her. Stay with one woman. So when you're out there and you're with the young girls and things like that, you got to watch out for stuff like this. Because just my take on the situation now, after hearing some of the things and hearing some of the text message that her lawyer put out, it made it sound like it's a setup. If something would have happened, you know, hopefully not, something did happen in November, she went and did it again. And then like right after, she was sending text messages like, I said no means no and things like that. Halfway sound like a setup to me, you know, but we're going to see how it plays out in court. But back to my point, you wouldn't have these problems if you know, get one woman, man. Stick to one woman, stop playing with the young girls out there. But we shall see how this turns out. And again, I like Shannon Sharpe. Hope it turns out in his favor. But, you know, if it doesn't, you got to pay for what you do. But we shall see how it plays out. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. And like always, I see you in the next one. Peace.